Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take another look here at Bitcoin. And, I think that amazing day is subjective, right? Because if an amazing day is a 5% decrease from Bitcoin and all your altcoins down 10 to 15, then I would say that's an amazing day. I'm kidding, of course, being facetious, trying to play this, lightheartedly because, of course, this is going to happen. This is a very natural thing. So try not to get discouraged when these things occur. Just consider it as a better buying opportunity. You can average your cost down a little bit lower. But we are at a point of contention. I'll talk about that here in just a moment. If you're new to the channel, not a financial advisor, just love teaching people how to trade. Hopefully you can learn something here today. And my goal and my passion is to help you become a better trader, more self-sufficient. CryptoCache.tech is the website, link in the description below if you want to become a better trader and effectively learn how to structure your trades. I send out signals for every trade that I take, as well as the fact that I actually have a trading academy that teaches you how to be a better trader. Okay, that and of course so much more with the trading community too. So I just can't speak high enough about my amazing folks that are part of this. So thank you again to my current community members, of course, for obviously just learning and growing together. It's an amazing experience. Thank you so much. All right, enough about that. Let's go ahead and look at Bitcoin and kind of speak to the obvious. So we're down about 5% today from top to bottom. Probably more so 4.5 now that we've seen a slight pullback to 40,800, but it came down to test right around 40,400. So unfortunately, those who are in a swing trade, of course, or a recent trade where we had a stop loss of 40,500, just barely got stopped out there. But that could be a good thing, and we'll talk about that too, because there's a chance, because Bitcoin's looking very weak right now, the price could continue to go lower. And again, we're at this point of contention, like I mentioned, and what that basically just means is we've got a few key indicators that are really coming to a head right now, and if we lose them, then it's over. And I don't mean over like it's like Bitcoin's just gonna explode tomorrow. That's not what I mean. What I mean though is that if we lose this key level support, obviously it's gonna work its way back down, and most of these recent gains, I wouldn't say necessarily are for nothing, but they certainly we'd hit the big old reset button. Okay, that's just the bottom line. All right, so let's go ahead and point out a quick pattern here. Because this pattern usually does very well, all right? In other words, when you have a situation like this where the price comes down, up, down, up, down, up, you're usually experiencing an increase at the tail end of that, all right? So it's supposed to continue to progress upwards from here, or at the very least, come back up to test this key level resistance right around 46,000, which again, we know we need to get past that in order to break ahead. So in order to consider Bitcoin at least somewhat bullish, we need to get 46,000 or higher. Okay. We're obviously not there right now, but had we got a bounce off 41,500 as expected, then the price should be going towards that at this very moment. Now, it could still do that potentially. Don't get me wrong. It's not that we're in dire straits here. It's just that we really should have gotten a bounce by now, and I didn't expect it to come much lower than 41, yet alone 40,500. So again, it's concerning me greatly based on the simple fact that we have a key level support here on the 50-day SMA on the one-day chart at about 40,200. And then equally as much, we've also got a bounce off of 50 on the RSI. Okay, potential bounce. We need a bounce is basically what I'm getting at here. If that comes down below 50, then we're going to be in, again, more bearish territory, which, again, it's not terrible, don't get me wrong, but if we're underneath that, we look at that, 17th to the 28th? So we were in basically bearish territory for about 11 days in a row before the price came back up above. And that was with a very significant candle on Monday. So that being said, with the price kind of coming down here to bounce off of 50, if we were to get that, then we'd get that natural progression that we expected to come up here. Obviously, we didn't expect it to come this low, but that's just the way that it goes sometimes. And that could be perfectly fine, building a solid foundation of volume at that lower price point. But once again, 50 on the RSI to me is an extremely important thing to hold. So if we hold 50 on the RSI and 50 on the SMA, then we'll be in pretty good shape here. Okay, we're super close to that. All right, so again, that's the point of contention. We'll see what happens next. Another thing here as well, and this is also relevant too in the sense of the fact that we got the 50 and the 200-day SMA right here, both working right at this point. Okay, so why don't we just go ahead and delete that Fibonacci retracement levels because we already kind of understand those key level supports. 40,200 again is kind of that support level. But if we look at the simple moving averages, both of them are coming to a head right here. And what this is supposed to do is it's supposed to signify a golden cross, and the price is supposed to come up from here. And what a golden cross is basically just is very similar to a MACD convergence, if you're familiar with that, where the 12 intersects with the 26 in an upward fashion. That essentially tells us that there's a shift in momentum from bearish to bullish. Well, the SMA doesn't necessarily work the exact same way, of course, because obviously the sentiment here is bearish. but it's supposed to work as a key level support to keep the price action higher. Again, will that come to fruition? It's hard to say, but that's also equally as important. We are under 50 on the RSI, which is not great. I didn't expect us to get there based on recent sentiment and the fact that we should have had a pullback by now off of 41.5. Had we bounced off 41.5, RSI would have came back up as well. Okay, so again, not ideal to be under 50 on the RSI on the 4 hour, but I'd much rather hold the 50 on the RSI on the 1 day than the 4 hours. So this isn't the worst thing ever. We could see a bounce here still. Now, one thing I want to kind of note, and this is the reason why I expected a bounce a lot sooner, is based on the simple fact that TD sequential, when you hit a 9 on TD sequential, you're supposed to see a return fire, right? Or at the very least, consolidation sideways. Some kind of rest and relaxation, because we had literally 36 hours of continuation of the downside. Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've now got 5 extra 4-hour candles, so 20 hours. So we're 56 hours into a bearish divergence right now. So that being said, we shouldn't be here, and it should have turned around a long time ago. 42,200, it should have bounced back, but it didn't. So unfortunately, the situation we're in right now, that's not great, but the good news, the silver lining, is that it's over-exhausted, and you'd expect the bears to have nothing left, and the bulls should be able to take control because of that. Right? Again, these are all should-bes and could-bes because again, cryptocurrency has a tendency of defying all laws of trading, and usually when you see a 9, and as a matter of fact, when I look back here, I saw one series of 9 in the last 3 months that went past a 9 on TD sequential in the 4 hour to the downside. So this is literally a crazy exception, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have this significant increase here, though, too. Right? You got to understand that was like 17% or something obnoxious in one trading day. Yeah, I think it was like almost 17, 18% in just a 24-hour period. So this correction is a lot larger than it should be based on that sentiment. But the key thing that we need to understand is that we have to stay above 40,500/40,000, right in that range there, that key level support channel, because we'd break that higher low, higher high pattern. Okay. Now what I mean by that here is we got these higher lows, of course, which is all well and good. But if this low continues much lower and it comes down below this recent high, in other words, a previous high, because there's higher highs and higher lows, of course. If your most recent low comes below the most previous high, then that's a shift in momentum that could change things. In other words, if we come down below 40,000, there's a strong chance that we'll see it continue lower, regardless of TD sequential, regardless of any indicator that we thought could hold us in place. Again, Bitcoin has a tendency of defying all the laws of trading, and that's what we're seeing here today. I'm not saying that this is an anomaly, but it doesn't happen too often. So I hope you understand what I mean by that. So that being said, we should expect a bounce at this point, or at the very least consolidation, and perhaps an increase over the weekend. My guess is if we can close today above 40,000, then we'll be in pretty decent shape to see a slow bounce back over the weekend. Once again, because the folks like you and I are adding to our position, and we'd have that shift in momentum potentially. I'm not saying that it's going to just turn right around because of it, but we are extremely overextended, and I don't know how else to state it. We're 56 hours into a bearish divergence here that should have only lasted 24. If that gives you an idea. So again, that's kind of where we're at there. Not great, but we should experience turnaround based on the simple fact that it's overexhausted. That's kind of the way that it should work, right? So anyways, that's kind of how that works. But we are below the moving averages here now, so we're under the 200-day EMA, at least on the 1 hour, and that's not ideal either. So again, this is ultimately somewhat bearish at this time. I'm not super confident in Bitcoin's ability to bounce back based on how low it's come. It doesn't look like there's a lot of buying pressure right now, and the selling pressure is extremely high. For what reason? It's hard to specifically say. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world, and that does factor in, so we got to think about that as well. But from a technical standpoint, we should have turned back around by now. Okay. So that being said, we close below 40,500. I think it's an extreme likelihood that we're going to continue downwards and break this plane here of roughly 40,000. If we close above, just say, preferably 41.5 today, of course, but if we can stay above, just say 41,000 today, that'd be very helpful. I'm not saying that that's going to just lead to a turnaround, but we got to expect some kind of reprieve here. Like, this should come back up. Like, it should not continue lower. Again, things are funny right now, and that's just the way that it goes. So let's take a quick look at the 1 hour and kind of see here. So we've got a bunch of resets. It keeps coming down to a 3, then we got a 7, and a 6, and now a 5. So it is slowing momentum, so to speak, but we keep getting a lot of these little dead cats where you think it's going to come back and it just keeps cutting its down. So it hasn't been an amazing last 24 hours. There's no doubt about that. Let's take a look at Ichimoku Cloud and see if we have any potential turnaround. And no, we're well below the cloud. Lagging span is free and clear of any price action tentatively. And I say tentatively because in about 12 hours, 12 to 20 hours, we could see that intersect with the price action. So just say the price goes completely sideways. At that point, the cloud would tell us to close our short position. So if you're shorting Bitcoin right now, there's really no reason to want to close it. Minus the fact that it's extremely overextended and we're coming into all those moving averages and that RSI, they have to count for something, right? So to me, I do speculate we will see a bounce, we will see a turnaround. I had expected the bounce to be a lot sooner at 41.5, but I'll take 40,500 at this point if it can just turn itself around and pull its head out of its ass. It'd be really nice if we could see that. Because unfortunately, it's just kind of one of those things that continues to and it does the exact opposite of what you think it's going to do, at least a lot more so recently. And that has a lot to do with, I think, the world and the climate, everything that's going on in general. Bitcoin is like the first thing to go when everything else is going funny, right? So as soon as the U.S. market, if it were to open and it opens in a red day, Bitcoin is almost 2x to that in some cases, based on the simple fact that it's a secondary market and most people would rather go with a certainty than kind of a gamble. And when I say most people, I'm talking about the industry leaders that are actually controlling these markets here and shifting the price in the direction that they want it to go, not the way we want it. All right. So again, that being said, I do think we should at least see some consolidation moving forward. Everything tells us on the technical indications here that we're extremely overextended, and we shouldn't have any reason to continue lower. Right? So that should account for something. We got to see some consolidation here. I'm going to speculate we're going to see somewhere between 40,500 and 41,500 this week, or more so this weekend, next trading day or so. But big picture, for lack of better terms, if we break below 40,500 and we close below that, that would be a very disadvantageous situation. But I would say wait for the one-day candlestick to close here today because it's definitely not over yet. I've seen Bitcoin rally at the end of the trading day. Sometimes that does happen. But the truth of the matter is, it's not looking, Bitcoin's looking very weak, but we have a lot of key level supports. So it's very conflicting information. And I would say at this point, just be cautious and maybe consider trimming some of your positions, specifically more so with the altcoins that might be a little weaker. It sucks to want to sell at a loss, but you probably actually add a gain if you've been dollar cost averaging as we've been trying to do so far. Again, not telling you to sell all your positions, just be cautious and just expect the unexpected, I would say. And Bitcoin still has yet to, it never ceases to amaze me at how ridiculous and crazy it can be. But that's the thing, you got to kind of roll with it. You got to learn to adapt because this is just the nature of cryptocurrency. It's not for everyone. And you kind of got to just laugh it off sometimes because it can really chap your hide if you're not careful. So I promise you, this is not the end of Bitcoin. I do feel like we should see a reprieve here soon. But I think, to summarize, just make it really simple and easy for you. Close below 40,500. We're going to have we're not going to be in dire straits, but we're definitely not going to be very good. We probably will see a continuation of the downside if we lose that support. If it does recover, we got to break 46,000 to have any type of indication to the upside. We got to get some kind of strength and momentum to be able to break these recent highs because we're literally creating a straight line with all these resistances, and it's very, very difficult to break past that. I mean, if you look at the one-day candlestick, 44,500 is a very strong place in which the price cannot seem to pass. So again, the more often you test the resistance, the more likely it is to break, right? So let's go ahead and test it again. Right, so just that easy. Other than that, see here, there's one more trend line I think we might want to try to look at here, and we'll just pay attention for later, because ultimately this is something that could factor in. We do have, obviously it's not null and void yet, but we are still making higher highs and higher lows when you think about it. Sorry, correction, higher lows rather on the 1 day here. So the previous lowest point close was about 35,000. And the most recent lowest close is about 37. So 35, 37, hypothetically 39,000 should be the most recent or most relevant bottom if we continue this trend, right? So just say, for example, the price continues to progress down here. we could and should expect to see a bounce somewhere around 39,000. All right, so again, trend lines aren't always 100%, but they do increase your odds of the likelihood of the price staying in that range. So that's just, again, something to think about that I just kind of saw there here at the last moment. We'll pay attention to that and keep an eye on it, of course, moving forward. Just be careful, be cautious, try not to be deflated here. This is fairly normal, right? I can't say that it's completely normal to have this much downside at once, but considering the circumstances, it kind of makes sense. All right, well, I hope you learned something here today. Thanks again for joining me here. And I know it sucks that this isn't a definitive direction, but if we close below 40,500, it's gonna be kind of a terrible situation. If we close above 46, we'll be in great shape. Just a fun little situation. We're gonna keep channeling though here for a little while, and I think that we're not out of the woods yet. We'll just put it that way. All right, thanks again for joining me here. Once again, CryptoCache.tech is the website if you want to become a community member. You'll become, obviously, a better trader in general. No better time like the present to become a better trader. We all could learn to improve regardless of the circumstances. All right, thanks again. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.